Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am with Lance King, CEO of Cyberlandr, and we are here today at your house. I really appreciate the kindness that you have, like having me over to your house. Apologies about my voice. It was a very busy day. And we are going to talk about Cyberlandr and some new cool things about Cyberlandr that you might not know about yet. They're like reveals today. So we should probably start with what the heck is Cyberlandr for people who may not know at this point.
Okay.
Living under a rock.
Cyberlandr is the camper for Tesla Cybertruck that magically appears out of the bed and expands and then retracts when it's time to travel so that it doesn't affect the aerodynamics as much.
There you go, which is pretty cool. So you've got a tiny little house camper on the back of a Cybertruck, fits in the trunk, and the really cool part is you're like, oh yeah, maybe you have like a little primitive something. It's like, no, this is about as far from primitive living as you can get. This is an amazing amount of complexity in a very tiny space, and we can't talk about everything just yet, but we will talk about some of the stuff here. And I don't know, do you want to start with there's been a lot of discussion about hardware and everything, and of course the Cybertruck has changed shape and everything, so that's required you guys to, do a little rethinking, but it looks like what you're doing is something that's even cooler than what we had before.
Thank you. We think so. Like Tesla, we want our finished product to be better than the original show vehicle or product. And so we've been working towards that. We got a little bit of extra time because Tesla delayed Cybertruck a bit. And so we're taking full advantage of that to try and improve things. And most of that we're keeping secret for now, but we'll unveil it later this year before we go into production.
Cool.
And we like to say that Cyberlandr, for the first time, lets you take your kitchen, living room, bedroom, bathroom, and office with you anywhere and everywhere you go and still fit in a normal parking space or into a garage.
And it's all in there. It's crazy. I've actually had a chance in the prototypes to get inside it and go like, wow, they can't believe that all fits in there, but it does.
Yeah, and you can probably dub in a little clip of the inside so people get an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we can look at this first so you can see some of the features and how it fits with the Cybertruck. So,
it's amazing how much you can fit in a small package if you put some effort into design. So the real magic here was not having a fixed dinette set or a fixed bed, but having chairs that could move around and be converted into a bed. They do have tabletops so that you don't need to have a fixed dinette. And again, you can see some of that in a clip that we'll...
Right. And of course it also expands backwards as it opens,
it does.
So that there's a toilet and all of that kind of stuff too, and a little step unit that comes up. So very, very, very cool stuff. But I think I think a lot of people have really been intrigued by the hardware aspect of Cyberlandr, but something that not a lot of people have focused on is that this is going to be just an AI behemoth, basically. So we can talk a little bit about the software, about the electronics that are going into this, because it's not just a dumb box that everything's in. It's like super, super smart.
Yeah, it occurred to us right from the beginning that if we were trying to count on Alexa to do some home automation, and that had to make it through an internet connection from the middle of nowhere and back, chances are that wasn't going to be a good customer experience.
Right.
And so we have to put a lot of compute power right in Cyberlandr. And initially we were looking at 384 coprocessors to handle the AI. And because of the delays, we have the option, we'll at least have as a potential upgrade, and maybe if we can, we'll make it standard, a newer processor with 1,000 processing cores for AI. So it should be a pretty good experience and some room to grow over the years.
Right.
So, we can talk just briefly about this. If you compare the Cybertruck, the blue line there, to other types of vehicles, you'll see that everything else is compromised. An economy car is high value, high utility, but low on performance. And normally economy would be out here really far, but in this case we're looking at like a Toyota Prius, and being a gas car is not nearly as efficient as an electric car would be. And then if you look at a sports car there in the yellow, you see, you've got great performance, but you give up some value and utility, and you pay a lot more for it, but you get bad economy. But then there's that Cybertruck in blue, and it does everything well simultaneously.
Right.
And so that's what inspired us to create Cyberlandr, is we thought this is unlike any vehicle that has come before it. It has fewer compromises. And so that's what inspired us. And the teal line there is Cyberlandr. We increased the value, utility, automation, and luxury of Cybertruck substantially, while barely making a dent into the economy and performance.
Right,
And
right.
boy, that's never been the case in an RV before.
No.
Traditionally in RVs, the destination is a reward, because getting there in those nasty, awful trailers, motorhomes, or trucks is not much fun, right?
And it's also really expensive. I mean, you pull behind a trailer and suddenly your gas mileage goes way down, and or your electricity usage goes, so.
Yeah, when 10 or 12 miles per gallon looks good, you know you're toast.
Yeah, exactly.
In an RV. And so, of course, with Cybertruck and the minimal hit on range and efficiency, with Cyberlandr being so aerodynamic, you're going to be getting pretty close to what it was rated, which, I'm assuming is going to be into the 80 to 100 mile per gallon equivalent range, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the charging aspect of it too. When you pull into a normal supercharger as you're on a road trip, if you have a pull behind trailer, at this point you'd have to disconnect it, back the car in, truck in, charge it, reconnect it. That's a pain. And if you're getting less mileage too, that's just a compounded pain in the butt. So this, not only are you getting almost the rated mileage out of it, but you're also getting it in a convenient package where you can just pull straight into the supercharger and not have to worry about that. So that's great.
Yeah, so you don't have to supercharge as often, and it's easy, just as easy to do as it would be with
the it's just like
Tesla.
with your car, so that's great.
Yeah, and there's no propane involved. This is all electric, and it's using the Tesla's power, so you don't have anything separate to charge. You plug in the supercharger and you're done.
Right.
And so that makes it a little easier. So,
now we're going to geek out.
we'll geek out. So, we have a 48-volt architecture, and so does Tesla with the Cybertruck. And we'd been working on this for quite some time. So when Tesla announced they were switching Cybertruck to 48-volt, we were thrilled, because we had already made that decision.
Right.
And what's the big deal with the 48-volt architecture? Well, it means you can have much smaller wires, use a lot less copper, which of course is better for the environment, saves some money, and of course it gives you more power to work with. And so when you hear 48-volt architecture for vehicles, and in our case an RV, you're really talking about 48-volt power over Ethernet. So this is an automotive standard Ethernet. It's allowing us to take the data and power through the same cable. And so instead of running massive amounts of wires, many cars have more than a mile of wiring in them. We can massively reduce that wiring by having one cable go to each controller, is what Tesla calls them. We call them sensor modules, but we'll probably switch to controller just to be consistent. And those controllers have their own brains, so they've got integrated circuits in them, and they control things in a very localized area. And so that minimizes that wiring as well. So on this diagram, along that left-hand side, you can see the IP65 or better rated power over Ethernet connectors. So these can have water splashed on them, and they're not going to short out. They're truly automotive grade, which is not typical. Typically in RVs, you see more of a home residential grade, not an automotive grade. And it's much more expensive to build to this standard, because you have to handle far wider temperature ranges, both cold and hot, and potential for some dust or water splashing and that type of thing. So we've got a lot of power going into this. We're running the standard power over Ethernet, so you're running 45 watts or so per connection, so that you can power the lights and the window tinting and things like that. We've got our big AI processor there with the blue, and that is on a module that we can easily upgrade over time as need be, as newer, faster processors come out. Got a lot of other cool things happening on there. We won't go into a lot of it, but you've got some antenna connectors and a few other things.
And you did mention, I noticed, just to make a point of this, that there's going to be window dimming and of course lighting and everything like that. But the window dimming by itself, you're going to have these beautiful windows where you can look out, but of course the problem with that is at night it's a fishbowl, and so if you're in like a park or something where there's a lot of other people or whatever, you probably don't want that, so you can just you don't even have to do anything, you just dim the windows.
Right.
So, yeah.
And a challenge with a camper that collapses like that is you can't really have blinds or curtains on the windows.
Right.
And nobody wants to run around to 7 windows. And we got 7 windows because you go out to nature to see the outdoors.
Right.
We want you to be able to see them. And you don't want to run around to 7 windows just when you want to change your clothes. So all you have to do is, hey Lander, privacy please. The windows will darken, you'll get your privacy, and you can change. And it will automatically bring up the lights to compensate for less light coming in through the windows.
And the beauty of it is that this is all doing it locally. It's not like Alexa where you have to wait for it to do the internet connection, decide if it's going to respond, all of that stuff. So it's just like,
much faster response. We realize Tesla puts an enormous amount of effort into making sure that they have a very fast response rate in everything they do, and we want that to be consistent across what we're doing. So again, really fast response rates by putting it locally, but of course that means you've got to put a lot more processing cores and spend a lot more money. So I think most RV manufacturers would be shocked at how many millions we spend engineering this and how much effort we're putting into it. But it's all comes back to that customer experience, and we want it to be consistent with what Tesla's producing.
Right.
So,
and a really nice 3D CAD modeling of it. So
we go to great effort on all of it. We want to understand all of it. It's all being tested for 810G vibration, IP levels for dust and water intrusion, and all that. We want them to be trouble-free and automotive grade. And of course, again, that makes every component more expensive because it has to support a bigger temperature range.
And this is cool.
So, people who had the early Model S's probably remember the fans that were cooling the big computer. And you could hear those running. And one of the things I really liked about my Model 3 when I got it was no more fan. And we wanted our Cyberlandr to be as silent as possible too. And so we've gone with hot water cooling.
Yes. So explain that one, because that's interesting, because most people are like, wait, you want cold water cooling, don't you? It's like,
so it's not really intuitive, but prior to starting Stream It, I built an award-winning data center. And one of the newer trends in data centers is not just water cooling, but warm water cooling. And so hot water for a human coming out of the kitchen faucet or out of the shower would be 125 degrees max, because above that you can scald instantly.
Right.
And but for a processor, 175 degrees or even 195 degrees is acceptable. So what we're doing is we're using the hot water loop to cool this processor. And by doing that, we also pre-charge the hot water loop so that you don't have to wait a long time to get hot water there, and we're not wasting energy to keep that water warm.
Right.
We're just circulating what we've got. And
pretty brilliant.
Thank you. We thought that was a good use of energy and space and time, and it keeps it quieter. So you can see it flows through and cools all the various components of the device. And so really what you've got here is you've got a computer, but you've also got a full network. This is a network switch and router built into one block. So instead of having, you've probably seen it in most RVs, you have lots of control panels, and behind each of those control panels is another block somewhere. And this will work too.
Yep.
And so behind each one of those little control panels is another computer brain somewhere in the RV that you have to deal with that has the wires plugged in. You've got a different interface on each one of those.
I think it might be too much to call it a brain.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a couple of neurons that are like rubbing together. So
And we wanted to simplify that, consolidate it, and make it as simple as possible. So we got it down to this.
And this is just amazing, because this is all custom designed, and it's just like, it's an amazing amount of work that you have put into this.
Thank
you. If people just think it's the building the box, this part has taken a huge amount of work too, and obviously it's going to be the whole idea is that so much pleasure for the customer that they're just like, wow, this is like so much better than I ever even imagined it could be.
That's the hope, and
Yeah.
and it gives us the chance to make it better over time, over
Right.
the air updates, continued refinements in hardware and software, and that's what we wanted to do is really thrill people, and it should get continually better over
Right.
time with new features. So. Here's the Cybertruck. This is the graphic Tesla used to show their 48-volt electrical system. You see in this blue line here, that's one of the 48-volt lines. It connects up to controllers along the way to provide the power. And then the gray wires are the local wires that connect to the controllers that are in red. And of course, Tesla also has their body control modules on the left and right-hand side. They do a brilliant job in making it redundant. And their controllers are custom, and so are ours. We had to engineer our own silicone. Now we use off-the-shelf processors.
Right.
We're not sophisticated enough to
Yeah.
design our own processors yet, but it is custom controllers and custom computer in ours, just as it is in the Cybertruck.
Right.
And there's just so many benefits to the customer to doing it that way. It means we can improve things much more quickly without being dependent upon third parties and their upgrade schedules. So this is a little look into those controllers or sensor modules, as we call them.
Right.
And in ours, I have no idea how Tesla is doing theirs because obviously we don't have access to those, but in ours are fully potted. What that means is once the computer brain is inside its enclosure, we completely fill it with a potting material. And that means it can take massive shock and vibration, and the parts aren't going to work loose over time. So, we wanted something that people can take their Cybertruck on the Baja 1000 and just beat it. If the truck's capable of it, we want Cyberlandr to be capable of it as much as possible.
This is for people this is the kind of stuff that NASA or SpaceX or something does for their rockets because they undergo massive amounts of vibration. They pot their electronics. So, so this is like aerospace grade stuff here. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is what happens when you have a technology company make an RV instead of an RV company make an RV.
That's right.
And so we try to bring our best technology to bear here. And so, of course, that makes it pretty much waterproof too.
Yeah.
The water, you don't have to
hint,
worry
hint. Didn't we hear something yesterday about amphibious Cybertrucks? So yeah, there you go.
So, yeah, it's been a labor of love. Our entire team absolutely loves working on this. We've got more than a dozen electrical engineers working on this stuff, doing the testing, and every aspect of it. Temperature, vibration, water ingress. We're trying to dot all the I's and cross all the T's to make sure it's a great experience.
Right. Oh, and here we go.
And
if you think it's not working yet, it's working yet. in a desktop environment, obviously not put
here's
together.
Here's an example
yet,
of that, right? We're still waiting for all the custom silicone to be manufactured. That will come later this year. Big lead times on all those parts and components. And as I mentioned earlier to you, John, we work with the largest component manufacturer or supplier in the world to ensure that we have supplies of these, given some of the constraints. And they've done a phenomenal job for us in making sure that the components we're specifying are available or can be available in time in the quantities we need so that we don't run into supply chain issues.
Right.
So barring any unforeseen problems, we should be good on that. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing some of our window tint back here. And right now you can see through it. If you wanted privacy, you can make that opaque so that you have complete privacy. And of course, right now we're using controllers from other people wired in, tested with the oscilloscope and whatnot. And that will all be reduced down to those control modules that we have. And there's one per window. So that's how we localize. We've got one controller per window. And sorry about that.
It's all good.
We've got one controller per window. And all the wiring that's needed locally comes into that controller with that single cable, 48-volt cable going back to the main brain.
Wow.
So simplified quite a bit. It should help reduce issues that people would have.
Right. That's just, wow. It really is amazing to see all this stuff. And of course, there's a bunch of hardware stuff, but we'll have to wait until what, July? I guess that's the reveal.
At least July.
Yeah.
We'll release some more information on the hardware side of it in July, and then we've got some more announcements coming up later this year. Look for us to do something in, same time as Tesla does their customer delivery event. So if you want to be invited to our event, if you're coming to the Tesla event, let us know. We'll be sure you get on that invitation list. So much bigger reveal then.
Right.
We're assuming that's probably going to be late September.
Right.
And then the big final production-ready reveal will be later this year at a big show. And we'd love to have thousands of people attend.
That'd be cool.
In fact, we're expecting, because we're doing it in conjunction with another event, we're actually expecting more than 100,000 people will be there and have access to it. So
wow.
Look for that announcement later this year.
That will be awesome.
So,
well, I can't wait. I am a proud reservation holder, so there you go. I've got a reservation, and I'm excited. And I've been sort of following along with you for what, maybe close to 2 years?
2 years now.
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah. So from like just a computer graphic to initial prototypes to working things, it's amazing to watch the progress.
Getting to try the kitchen.
Yeah, getting to try the kitchen. Oh yeah, if you haven't caught those other videos, I will link a couple of them at the end of this video, because why not? You get to see me like trying to smash the really hard material that you use, the
porcelain.
Porcelain.
Oh no,
not the porcelain.
Panels.
The external. Yeah. I think I'd probably be able to crush the porcelain if I took a sledgehammer too.
It'll take some work, but you can do it.
So anyway, yeah. So there's a lot to talk about with this, and it's just amazing. But thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I really appreciate it. Yeah,
Thank you.
It was great. Thanks.
Take care.
And everybody, we'll talk to you in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.